Anuj, talk to us about the quarter gone by. Were you satisfied? Numbers don't look bad at all. We spoke a month and a half ago, and you were pretty, convinced that a CAGR growth of 32% is something that you can clock in over the next 5 years as well. You feel you're on the right track for that?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Very satisfied with the results as they have shown up in H1 this year. I think the investors were seeking this kind of an opening performance from us in the first results announcement. I'm glad that my team has worked hard and delivered the consistent growth results here. In terms of the consumer trends that are leading us to support the consistent growth is clearly that the consumers are spending a lot more time on smartphones. They are transacting a lot more on smartphones, and the average value of the transactions are going up, and consequently the advertisers across different verticals, whether it's e-commerce, OTT, travel, transport, entertainment, gaming, food delivery, government, banking, fintech, all these verticals are spending increasingly on mobile consumer data-led platforms like ours, and programmatic is becoming a key trend as well, and Affle is right with the right solutions, offering the right business model. So consequently, revenue growth of almost 40% in H1 and the PAT growth of almost 60% in H1 is obviously something I'm very satisfied with.
So what would the projection then be for H2? Does that put a lot more pressure on H2, or you're pretty comfortable to meeting or even surpassing what you did in H1?
So in H2, typically for us, it's a better time than H1 historically, and that's backed by the insight that the October, November, December quarter, the one that we are in right now, is generally a very festive season with Dussehra, Diwali, then Christmas and New Year, and that leads to the advertisers typically increasing their spends because the consumers are a lot more willing to spend in this particular quarter. So I think these trends would see a consistent lift, and seasonality in our business has always been there. So H2 is generally better than H1, and because our systems and business model is such that we have asset light and there are bottom line advantages, our OPEX will stay largely constant in H2, but because the revenue growth will be significantly more than H1, we should see better bottom line performance in H2.
Talking about your business model on the three use cases, that is new user conversion of the existing user, and the new and existing user conversion offline. How have all of these three panned out?
Sure. Thanks for that question. So yes, there are three use cases, but the way we see it is one business segment where we are driving conversions. The conversions can come for an advertiser from new users who had never had the app of the advertiser before, or the conversion can come from an existing user who is not using the app frequently enough, or the conversion can come not online on the phone, but it can come offline from the online to offline segment. Now all of these three businesses, let's call it the CPCU business, the cost per converted user business, contributed over 90% of our revenues, and this particular segment alone grew over 45%. Now, when I look at those numbers, India in particular showed that the CPCU business grew over 65% in India alone, and the international markets powered by Southeast Asia or other emerging markets like Middle East Africa grew over 25%. So the blended average growth of the CPCU business, which is 90% of our revenue, has grown 45% year on year in H1, and that's pretty strong outcomes based on those three use cases.
Just going to take that point forward here. Anuj, you said average CPCU, of course, in the first half, if I look at the presentation, it's at 41.3 versus 40.1, which was seen same time last year. Can this be, can we expect higher numbers in the second half, or the growth will be the same that we've seen in the first half?
See, our focus as an organization is that we are using deep funnel conversion metrics in terms of well beyond clicks, well beyond app installs to how people are registering and converting with the advertisers in the deeper funnel engagement. So if you look at that, we have got over 250 billion data points in H1, over 2.1 billion consumer connected devices profiled around the world, And so this is just a starting point, you know, where we are. So there is a huge volume growth here that we are focused on. So our focus is on if you look at the investors presentation, the conversions, our focus is clearly on driving volume conversions as we go across geographies. In terms of the average CPCU, we have maintained a consistent trend line of that 40 rupees and plus minus, because what we are seeing is that we are not subsidizing our pricing for volume. So we are growing the volume, but we are maintaining our pricing and therefore seeing a much better bottom line sensible growth. So we are not a company that's subsidizing bottom line performance for growth. And I think that's the key message we want to give to all our stakeholders.
50%, nearly 50% of your revenues, they come from 10 clients, the top 10 clients. Do you foresee any sort of concentration risk? And also tell us if there were any new customers added in the September quarter.
Right. I think I'm very pleased with the way the concentration risk is being managed by my team, and also by how the industry is evolving and emerging. So there are two broad trends that have brought the customer concentration risk significantly down for us. The first one is that the denominator, which is the total revenue, is growing on a very broad basis across industry verticals, across advertisers, spending a lot more money. So since the denominator is growing faster than the numerator, the top 10 customer concentration naturally comes down. The second factor which is happening in this industry is that a lot of the advertisers are increasingly data and tech savvy, and they are wanting to, let's say in many cases, work directly with a tech platform like ours. While for us as a tech company, we value the ad agencies and the advertisers as very, very important partners, and we are neutral and best sort of partners with both of them. But naturally in the industry we are seeing a shift where some of the advertisers are working directly while others are working through the agency. So that's also helping to bring the customer concentration risk significantly down for our business, and that trend should continue.
Just one last question. You're a recently listed company, and you guys raised money from the market, out of which 90 crore was towards meeting your working capital requirement. Has the entire capital deployed, and what's the road ahead with regard to the cash right now which is sitting on the books?
Well, thanks on that question. The capital is being used carefully. We are a cash flow positive company. If you look at H1 last year versus H1 FY20, we have significantly improved our cash flow performance from operating activities. So we are generating cash as an organization. So the working capital based usage of some part of the capital that has been raised is already being sort of utilized increasingly. We are looking at the internal accruals based cash flows being deployed selectively, very carefully, for strategic inorganic expansion possibilities, and we are evaluating whether we should enter into any of those transactions, but we will consume those capital opportunities as very selectively and at a step at a time to grow long-term shareholders value. So we will keep you informed as we go along on that usage.
All right, Anuj, all the best for the second half and the upcoming quarter as well. Thanks for joining in this afternoon.